Hey everyone, I'm Uriah Kaiser. I'm the founder and publisher of PotomacLocal.com as well as Virginia Insider. And we're joined today by Jenny Smith of the Towering Concerns Group. And we've been following this group as they have been protesting, calling attention to yet another power line that will serve those power hungry data centers in Northern Virginia, something that many Northern Virginians are all too familiar with, and many people across Virginia are just waking up to the fact that these data centers are slowly taking over. They're slowly raising electricity rates across the state. If you've checked your power bill lately, you might have noticed that your rate has gone up. Your usage may not have increased, but your rate certainly has. So, Jenny, thanks for coming on and talking about this Kraken loop. I know they've tried to rename this thing. They've tried to rebrand it to make it sound a little bit different because the word Kraken is maybe doesn't have the best connotation to it, but that's how we first started reporting on this back in December when we learned this massive power line was going to come up from I believe it's the Lake Anna area and traverse through Stafford County into Spotsylvania County. So thanks for coming on, and we've got a big meeting tonight. Got a lot to get into. But first, let's just talk about what this project is for those who do not know. What is the Kraken Loop?
So the Kraken Loop, it's now called the North Anna Bristers Project. As you said, it's been rebranded to make it sound a little more palatable to, I think, the public, is a 70 plus mile, 120 foot wide, clear cut path that goes from the North Anna, Lake Anna area all the way through Spotsylvania County, through parts of Caroline, up through Stafford County, and is intended to power data centers, as you say. Initially, when Dominion released the information on this project, they indicated it would be only a 500 kilovolt line. When we listened carefully to their initial first public meeting, one of the engineers let it slip that it's actually a 500 kilovolt line and a 230 kilovolt line. So we actually expect the Kraken loop to be much wider than 120 feet. Um, but basically, it's a corridor as wide as I-95 that's going to cut from Lake Anna all the way north to feed data centers.
And this is on top of the Valley Link line that we've been reporting on and talking about, and that one's running up from the Lynchburg area up through Culpeper and Spotsylvania County, Lake of the Woods area. All of these massive power lines, again, to feed these data centers, and this line in particular. I mean, not only will the Valley Link line be a 200-foot swath cut, like you were just saying, they width of I-95, they're calling that one a power interstate. Sounds like the Kraken Loop, very similar, a power interstate that will cut through agricultural lands, forest lands. This Kraken Loop right here will also go next to schools and homes, something that, again, Northern Virginia residents are all too familiar with data centers also going next to schools and homes.
Exactly. The Kraken Loop actually passes directly through the property of Rodney Thompson Middle School. The Kraken Loop is slated to pass right over home plate of the softball field at Rodney Thompson Middle School.
In
It's
Stafford
slated
County.
in Stafford County. Mountain View High School also, it passes over the track, the high school track. We expect to lose our track program at Mountain View High School, our softball program at Rodney Thompson. In Stafford County alone, the Kraken passes through 5 school properties and over 860 in the backyards of 860 homes.
Now, this is something that the Stafford Board of County Supervisors has been talking about since December. And much like we've seen from many other boards of county supervisors and city councils throughout Virginia when it comes to these power lines, they have, like Stafford has put up opposition to this project. They are saying it's not exactly anything that they want coming. So, as you just described, over the home plate of the baseball diamonds here on the schools in Stafford County. But unfortunately, and before I get into the whole part about the state control, the Stafford, that the Board of County Supervisors, we reported on PotomacLocal.com this week, and get this article over at PotomacLocal.com. Sign up for our free daily newsletter that contains all this stuff. But according to a new report, issued by Stafford County, 93% of respondents viewed the Kraken Loop project unfavorably, with just 3% saying we think it's good, and 5% saying, well, we don't know or have no opinion. 80% indicated their opinion would improve significantly if the lines were buried underground, and I want to get to that, rather than having them overhead, these overhead ugly power lines. Now, it would be great if Stafford County could, if the Board of County Supervisors that proceeds over Stafford County could say, hey, you know what? We don't want this, or we want this to go in a different route. We want this to go this part of the county as opposed to over home plate at the high school baseball diamond. But unfortunately, they don't have that. They don't have that call. It is all in the hands of the State Corporation Commission in Richmond that since the 1970s has had the authority to run these lines over any route they want. And so that's kind of what we're dealing with here. But going back to this 80% say, let's underground this thing. Let's talk about that. What would that look like? Because we have seen a successful fight years ago, about 10 years ago in Haymarket, where they wanted to build an overhead line, a 500 kilovolt line that would connect to an Amazon data center. You had activists come out in Prince William County to fight Dominion. They fought City Hall and they won. They got part of it buried underground.
Well, you may not be aware that there are already underground lines in part of the Kraken Loop area. In the segment marked segment 5, there's already a section of a 230 kilovolt power line buried in Stafford. In fact, Towering Concerns 20 years ago fought with SEC and got that line buried back then. So Stafford is already, and I feel like the Board of Supervisors did a good job pointing this out in their documentation, that Stafford is already the appropriate spot to bury power lines. So we support that. We think that's a great idea, and we're proud of the Board of Supervisors for the work that they've done in that area. I think it's significant to point out that of that survey that you refer to, that the most fired up area is that Section 5 segment. They already have underground lines there. They already see that those are a superior way to run power to overground lines. One of our concerns, of course, is that the EMF radiation from underground lines is not stopped completely, but it's low, it's to the ground, and it's at child level. So we have concerns about the safety and how that will affect Stafford County students. We have some significant confusion and issues in Stafford because Stafford 5, segment 5, as I said, already has underground lines, and now Dominion's trying to overground there.
Because
and
it's
as
cheaper.
part of
It's cheaper for Dominion to build the lines above ground and build the towers than it is to have to dig and bury these things. And that's always been the argument. And Dominion, 10 years ago, when we were covering the Haymarket, the burial of the Haymarket line, Dominion said, no, we don't want to do that because the A, it's more expensive for us to do, and B, they argue the life of the line is shorter than it would be. So let's just say and I'm just pulling these numbers out of thin air, but if we build an overhead power line with towers, it'll last 100 years. If we put it underground, it'll last 45 to 50 years. That was their argument back then. I don't know, things may have changed, but when you're dealing, I mean, so the concerns here, and it is more than the EMF, electromagnetic and health concerns that power lines put out. And we've seen the damage that these power lines do bring to communities, especially on small children, and what they do. But we're also talking about quality of life. We're also talking about property values. I mean, when I bought my home, I didn't expect to be living next to a 50-foot transmission tower. I mean, that completely changes the face of the neighborhood and completely, in most cases, drives down property value.
That's right, and we're not talking about 50 feet. We're talking about 170 feet
Big
towers,
difference.
super
Big difference.
poles. And listen, I've heard the arguments about undergrounding, that they're more expensive. So far, that hasn't proven to be the case. In fact, the SEC approved it in Stafford County because it was so cost effective to bury the lines in Stafford County. It was only fractionally more important and would raise people's bills something like half a cent for people to pay for undergrounding. Listen, undergrounding is affordable. It may be slower for Dominion to underground. I think that's the real problem, but it's not as expensive as they claim. You'll see that it's 10 times more expensive or whatever. That's simply not the case and hasn't proven the case in Chino Valley Hills, California, where they undergrounded a 500 kilovolt line. It didn't prove the case in our 230 kilovolt line. That's simply not true. Now, safety wise, um, the power line, the 230 kilovolt power line that's in segment 5 in Stafford County has never failed. It's a power line that's been very, very reliable, very effective, and we feel that's a further argument for undergrounding. And regarding property values, of course, that's a negative. We're already hearing rumors in the county of people reducing the prices of their home by over $100,000, possibly because of the power lines. We're seeing people trying to sell their homes and get out. Um, in fear of the power lines. Stafford County is already facing a significant budget shortfall, and if more than 800 homes uh, values decrease significantly, that lowers the amount of property taxes that we can pull in, which is our primary source of income in Stafford County still. It's problematic for everyone in the county, and we should all be concerned about what's happening with the Kraken loop.
Not to mention, the Stafford Board of County Supervisors just hiked taxes across the board in that county, majorly 4 cents on every hundred of the assessed value of property, and so whereas it's reported as just 4 pennies, it actually equates to thousands of dollars more a year for homeowners who have to pay higher property taxes, which is the core function, which is the core funding mechanism for local government in Stafford County. And yeah, you bring up a good point. You know, if these home values go down, that's less money for the county to operate on. And I guess if home values continue to go down, maybe fewer people will want to live in an area that is inundated by, you said, 170-foot towers
That's
for these
right.
lines. There is a meeting tonight in Stafford County. It is going to be at we reported the Hampton Inn or Quantico Conference Center. Is this the correct location, or was this moved over to a high school?
No, there's two meetings coming up. So Dominion is scheduling a meeting on May 11th. That'll be at the Hampton Inn that you're describing. That meeting is from 3:30 to 7:30 in the evening. That'll be an open house with Dominion. We expect that to be much like the meetings that they've had in Spotsylvania, where they have pictures up on the walls like a children's science fair, and there's some engineers there that you can go and speak to. Dominion continues to prevent us from speaking to them as a group or from being able to hear one another's concerns or even the responses that Dominion gives to us. Um, in fact, that was one of the frustrations earlier this week when they blocked us from the public virtual meeting that was scheduled. That's our only opportunity to speak to Dominion on the record. It's the only time that we ever get information from Dominion that's transcribed and written in text. Everything else is verbal, and they'll just deny that they said it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's problematic. But tonight's meeting is essential, and that's with Delegate Stacy Carroll, who has been really fantastic in working with us and trying to mitigate the effects of this power line on Stafford County. She has worked with Dominion and organized a meeting that will be held at Colonial Forge High School at 6:30 p.m. tonight. Stafford citizens have been submitting questions that we expect to have answered there at that meeting. Stacy has promised that she's going to try to get Dominion to answer every single question that was submitted. I hope that happens, but we're very excited about this meeting. We really need butts in seats in order to show Dominion how serious we are about the Kraken loop.
Yeah, it's very unfortunate that when you see utilities like Dominion, you see other state agencies, other government agencies that they call a meeting, and you think to yourself, "Oh wow, this is going to be an opportunity for us to get together and be heard and talk and ask questions and sit down, maybe have a presentation from the whatever agency that wants to build this big shiny new object." And what you end up many times, what happens, you go and it's a bunch of people standing around a room in front of a poster board. And if you want to go ask them questions, they'll point to the poster board and say, well, look, there it is, stupid. Don't you understand what this means? I mean, here, let me show you again for the cheap seats in the back. And no one ever gets to, as you said, have a sit down presentation, a real town hall where people can air their concerns, get answers, get things on the record. And I'm glad to hear that the delegate, Stacey Carroll, is going to hold their feet to the fire at the meeting tonight. Go ahead and repeat the details on that. I believe you said it's at Colonial Forge High School tonight.
That's right. Colonial Forge High School tonight, 6:30 p.m. We would love to get everybody out there. Again, this is still not going to be a public town hall style meeting, which does disappoint us a little. We have been able to submit questions, which we appreciate, but what we won't be able to do is have fellow citizens hear responses and then ask follow-up questions to Dominion's responses. So that will be a frustration, but again, we are excited about this meeting and this opportunity to finally have Dominion engage publicly with our questions.
Jenny, if people want to follow your group, learn more about what is Towering Concerns, how they get involved, and see what's happening in this part of Virginia, and for those who are listening who may be outside of the Fredericksburg area, but or are dealing with the Valley Link or dealing with other data center development in their area, as I said, these things are popping up all over the state now. It's no longer just confined to Northern Virginia. Again, that Valley Link line, 115-mile major transmission line that they're going to run from Lynchburg area up to Culpeper and into Spotsylvania County. So this is really affecting this whole data center expansion. It's coming to your backyard if it's not here already. So how can people follow Towering Concerns and get involved?
Well, thank you for asking that. We are following Valley Link very closely, and we hope that they're following us also. We're fighting parallel fights. Our website is toweringconcerns.com. You can sign up for our email list right there. There's a link at the top of the page. That's our very best way to stay in touch with people is through email. We also have a Facebook group that you can find. Just search Towering Concerns. You'll be able to get into the Facebook group. It's very active. But either of those locations is fantastic, and we look forward to reaching out to anybody who's interested in this power line and data center situation.
Well, Jenny Smith, Towering Concerns, meeting tonight. Don't if you and tonight at Colonial Forge, and again, if you can't make it that one, there's another meeting Dominion will be holding on May 11th, at 3:30 in the afternoon, from 3:30 to 7:30 is what we have at this Hampton Inn at Stafford Quantico Conference Center. That's on Route 1 in Stafford County. So that's May 11th. So big meetings coming up. Maybe they'll change their format. I know that when Buc-ee's came to Stafford and held their meeting at the same high school that this meeting will take place back in the fall of 2025, there was enough groundswell. And credit to Buc-ee's, they answered questions. The guy finally picked up the microphone and said, you know what? I'm going to answer these questions because you want to hear. And it wasn't for much of it, especially the people who opposed that mega gas station there on I-95, it wasn't a pleasant experience. But at least people were heard. At least people got their questions answered, and you got a sense of what the community was feeling, at least the people who showed up to that meeting. And of course, it's all about showing up. So Jenny Smith, thank you for coming on the podcast today. Check out Towering Concerns if you want to get involved and have more questions about this. And of course, we'll keep bringing this to you so you know exactly what's happening in your backyard and across Virginia. You guys have a great day.